Barry Lewis. I'm the executive editor for the Times Herald Record. I want to welcome our candidates running for Orange County Executive, Republican incumbent Steve Neuhaus and Democratic challenger Patrick Davis, as well as our viewers who are watching today's Times Herald Record political debate while it is streaming live, or they can watch it anytime at recordonline.com. Our panel will be asking questions today besides myself is Times Herald Record staff writer Chris McKenna, editorial page contributor Ken Hall, and Times Herald Record publisher Joe Vanderhoof. Our goal for the debate is to provide voters with the best possible understanding of where the two candidates stand on the issues. For that reason, not only will our panelists be asking questions, but we will also allow the candidates to exchange ideas as they see fit. As the moderator, I will watch the time to make sure the debate keeps moving and that we have some balance in the exchange. Both candidates will have 2 minutes to give an opening statement, after which we will alternate asking questions, giving each candidate about 2 minutes to answer, and the other candidate will have about 1 minute to rebut. We have no clock in the room, but if I feel the candidate has exceeded their time, I will stop and move on to the next question. Before the debate, we flip the coin to decide who would go last in either the opening or the closing statements. Patrick won the toss, so Patrick, I would welcome you for your opening statement.
Thanks, Barry, and thanks to the rest of the editorial board for having me this morning. And Steve, thank you for agreeing to do this. You know, it's been an absolute honor to run for office here in Orange County, and I'm really proud to be here. My opponent and his buddies are going to paint me as a person who doesn't have the experience to do this or hasn't been in the county long enough to have the privilege of running for office, but I think that's a blatant misrepresentation of the facts. I'm here to take what I learned at West Point, leadership, service, integrity, to make Orange County government better. I'm bringing business sparks, innovative leadership from the Wharton School, and the halls of some of the world's most prestigious professional services firms. I'm running for county executive because in today's political environment, with our democracy hanging in the balance, the people of Orange County deserve a choice. I'm running for Orange County executive because I have a vision for the future that I think has been resonating with voters. And that vision is, instead of pursuing growth just for the sake of growth, we need to be talking about progress. Progress means creating an Orange County that invites our children and grandchildren back to the county after they complete their education, where they can have well-paying jobs, afford the rent, send their kids to good public schools, and not worry that the opioid epidemic is going to tear their family apart. Our county needs an executive who puts the interests of the people first, not special interests or party insiders. And I'm a leader committed to service and integrity with the vision and the strategy for the future that people can get around, regardless of what political party you're a part of. I'm really proud to be here representing my supporters and the future of Orange County.
Mr. Neuhaus?
Hey, good morning, everybody, and it's good to see you guys here. And obviously, Pat, appreciate your time. We're going to have a lot of fun with this campaign, and it's good to give people a choice, and I appreciate your service as well. I also want to welcome all the people listening and watching at home. It's going to be an exciting time. I go off on really one big thing. Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? When I came in as county executive in January 1st, 2014, there was a ton of struggles and problems in front of the county. The government center had been closed. No movement on that. The county budget was unbalanced. Our sales tax projections were way out of whack, and as well as other revenues. Our tourism was neglected. Our infrastructure, besides the government center, was neglected. Bridges were closed for years. I make the reference that bridges are fixed in Iraq and Afghanistan quicker than they were in Orange County, and we've changed that. Also, I've taken a forward-leaning, personal role in every economic development project that's come to Orange County. I don't push it off to a subordinate. I meet face-to-face with the CEOs of corporations like Amy's, Steris Pharmaceutical, all companies that have called Orange County or are calling Orange County their home now. So when you look at some of these things that I was faced with as the new county executive, the Heritage Trail was talked about being expanded for decades. The Indigo water reservoir was purchased before I was even going through puberty and earmarked for water resources. It's now being utilized for the public's growth. It's a cooperation I've done with the city of Middletown. All these stalled projects have now been put into the light and fixed. The government center, we're moving people back in right now. The budget is balanced. And that's not just me saying. Moody's removed the negative outlook that they put on us because of the fiscal instability we're in. 2 weeks ago, Comptroller DiNapoli, the Democratic comptroller for New York State, removed Orange County as being susceptible to fiscal stress. These are third-party validators that back where we are. And the last thing I'll say is Stewart International Airport. It's been talked about being international for 50 years. The only thing international about it until this year was cargo planes going out of it and the military. Working directly with the Port Authority and marrying them with Coach USA out of Chester, we've been able to make that a reality, bringing in thousands of people, which is increasing our tourism. So I look at what our record is in Orange County and what we've been doing and the stuff that we're going to do going forward, continue to have that momentum in a positive direction. I was born and raised here. I was educated here. I have my family I'm raising here in Chester. I know the issues, and I look forward to expanding on them.
Thank you. First question goes to you, Mr. Davis. Both you and Mr. Neuhaus have served our country. Mr. Davis, you are a West Point graduate, an Army veteran who served 2 tours in Iraq. Mr. Neuhaus is a lieutenant commander in the U.S. Navy Reserve. Both have touted your military records during the campaign, and while admirable, I wonder why that should matter to a voter. Mr. Davis first.
Look, I mean, I think that just shows, my military record shows very clearly the cloth I'm cut from. When I decided to go to West Point when I was in high school, we were not a nation at war, but I was following in the footsteps of my father, who served in Vietnam, was badly injured there in October '68, had to deal with the consequences of basically almost losing his leg and not being able to live a normal life afterwards. Both of his parents were in World War II. These are the types of stories and the background that I grew up in. And I like to talk about my military service, first of all, because I am very proud of it, and I do thank Steve for his service as well. But it just gives you a little bit better context of where I'm coming from a service perspective. I joined the military to serve, not to pave the way for profiting off my service or preparing myself for a political career. And like I said, I'm very proud to be part of it. That's a very big part of me, my military service, my time at West Point. What I learned in Iraq over the course of 27 months deployed there, leading soldiers in combat, are things that's where I learned on the job. We're talking about on the job training. That's where I learned on the job, and it's again a very important part of who I am and what I bring to the table.
I joined the military in October of 2001. I worked in Tower 2 of the World Trade Center. So like most people that are in, or many people that are in the military today, that was our rally cry to serve. And my father served during Vietnam. I remember as a little kid, I used to always wear some of his old uniforms around, and I still have a couple of them. And I've always wanted to join, but my parents said, go to college first and then see what happens. And it took the World Trade Center and what happened on 9/11 to get me motivated. And I love my experience, constantly being challenged. I've been overseas and domestically. About 5 years ago, during Hurricane Sandy, I was activated to serve down in Floyd Bennett Field to serve our fellow Americans, our fellow New Yorkers in the Far Rockaways. And I am proud of what we've done there. I led about 18 men and women down there, and I've also been overseas and led men and women. And we have in the military as officers called fitness reports. Every year your commanding officer decides where you go and if you get promoted based on these. And mine have been stellar in my 10-year career in the Navy. I was hand-selected for a special warfare unit now, which I'm very proud of being. And I think if people say you do it for political reasons, I don't believe that is really a fair statement for anybody. Because I don't care if you were a cook or a SEAL. If you raise your right hand to serve in this country, who knows what's going to happen tomorrow? Somebody can go to war. I mean, so I salute everybody. I have 13,000 veterans that I'm in charge of in Orange County to make sure that they're okay and make sure that the federal government is meeting their commitments to them. So I applaud everybody who's raised their right hand, and I'm very proud of my service. It's been very helpful to me as the incident commander for the county We've got 2 perfect scores in emergency management. I think that's directly related to the team I've built in the emergency management office, as well as my leadership of calling the shots. I'm the guy that makes a decision.
Yes, did I get a chance to rebut on that?
Well, go ahead.
Sure. I mean, I just wanted to correct one thing. I believe there's over 20,000 veterans in Orange County, if I have my numbers right.
I don't think you do, but that's fine. We have a lot of them.
In the context of 9/11, obviously a turning point in our nation's history. Even after that happened, there was a series of choices I made while at West Point, even though we were a nation at war, to choose to serve in a branch that I knew was going to be on the front lines. And I think that's very important. Again, it's a representation of the cloth I'm cut from and where I'm coming from.
Okay. Chris, question?
I want to ask about Camp LaGuardia. Sure. Orange County bought it for $8.5 million almost 11 years ago and has yet to resell it. Steve, you wanted to create shovel-ready commercial development sites there when you took office 4 years ago. And Patrick, you suggested converting the buildings there into an opioid treatment center. Could both of you explain exactly what you would do to move that property forward, what you want built there, and what specific steps you would take to accomplish that?
Okay. Who do you want to go first, Chris?
Go ahead.
Okay. Look, I grew up in southern Orange County. My dad's been a dentist in Chester for over 30 years. I knew how horrible it was when Camp LaGuardia was open there. And when I got the word yesterday that my opponent wants to put an opioid treatment center there, we're not going to substitute one bad thing for another. And it's not just me talking. The 2 supervisors, the Chester supervisor and the new incoming Blooming Grove supervisor, think it's a terrible idea. At the end of the day, with Camp LaGuardia, it was a good thing that the county helped close it in New York City. It's changed the whole landscape of southern Orange County. People love going on a heritage trail because of that. I can list, and you guys can go through your Times Hall record backgrounds of how many horrible experiences happened on behalf of Camp LaGuardia and what they did to the businesses and the families of the southern Orange County region. So let's talk about what we should do there. I made a proposal earlier this year to have one part of it, the lower part, revert to farmland. My opponent came out supporting that today, so thank you for that. It's the right thing to do. We have farmers interested in that parcels. But I know the legislature has to make the decisions on this. At the end of the day, this parcel needs to have legislative cooperation. The legislature was a little concerned that this would tie into Kiryas Joel. We had some litigation and letters going back and forth. So that piece of property that on the lower part is set aside. The top part of it and the overwhelming part in Chester is zoned commercial. And that's why I go back to what the 2 supervisors that have come back against my opponent's plan for it. It's a home rule state. Look, the county can bully their way and push their own thing in here, but it's not the right thing to do. The Blooming Grove residents who elect their leaders, the supervisor's running unopposed there. And I think the Chester supervisor ran unopposed when he got elected. If not, at least they're both in there. They should help determine what should go there. And I think commercial sites, which a lot of communities need to help stay within the tax cap and bring in ratables, is the right thing to do. But I'm not going to force some half-assed plan on the local municipality. And opioid centers will be expanding in Orange County, but they're going to go where they're needed. Right now, we're busing over 100 people a week to Newburgh to get treatment. Is there a need for expansion? Are they in the works? Yes. But they're going to go where the demand is.
Davis?
Sure, there's a lot to respond to there. First of all, it is a little disheartening to hear about, Steve, how you talk about these unwanted people who are suffering through some very real problems. And it is the #1 crisis we're facing here in the county. You know that I've heard you say that. And I'm not about coming in as the county executive and bullying my way through anything. The fact that we do have town boards is an important part of our democracy, and I look forward to working with them very closely. What I put forward as a suggestion for the use of Camp LaGuardia as a place that has cost the county over $10 million in terms of the sale from New York City, and then the broken contract when Mount Co couldn't make the deal work. This has cost the county money, and it's not on the tax rolls. Right? We need to do something with it, and my proposal is simply to take a tremendous asset that the county has, put it to use for solving one of the most pressing problems we have. Again, I respect the fact that this is home rule, but this is another example. You mentioned that these town supervisors have run unopposed. So how do we know that they're representing the best interests of the people? right? I don't think that's a very good example. Again, I think we need to come to the table creatively, and I'm willing to work with both the elected officials in both of the towns, the Orange County Partnership, the IDA, whoever may need to be at that table to discuss what we do with Camp LaGuardia to possibly attract private investment. There are ways we can do this without blowing our way through it, and I think it's the way to go.
Ken?
New Yorkers are going to have to vote in November on whether or not we should have a constitutional convention. I'd be curious to hear from each of you. How are you going to vote on that vote, and what would you say to people about your stand? Go ahead, you go first.
Sure, I'm not supportive of holding the Constitutional Convention. While I do think there are many things in our state constitution that could be improved in terms of ethics and whatnot in Albany, I simply have no faith that the execution of a constitutional convention will be any different from the rest of our system, where the process is going to be overly influenced by special interests, wealthy special interests, and I just think it puts way too much at risk in terms of workers' rights, women's rights, you name it. It puts it all on the table. Access to pensions, public pensions. I think the risk is too great, and right now I don't have enough trust in the system that we'll be able to execute a constitutional convention without it being a complete boondoggle.
I'm definitely voting no. I've never seen an issue more universally hated. I was at an event for the right to life. They were against it. Planned Parenthood's against it. Everywhere I've gone, unions are against it. The state conservative party has it on their banner. Vote no to this thing. The Democrats, the Republicans. I haven't met one person, honestly, I've not met one person, and I've been all over the place campaigning, that says we need this thing. And look, here's the risks at it. The same people, the same political apparatus that's in there now is, in my opinion, likely or guaranteed to be replacing. So it'd just be a whole lot of waste of time and money for really no result. And you also put at risk really doing some damage to the state at the same time. So I'm not in love with the way Albany functions. I'm not in love with the way Washington functions. But this Constitutional Convention is something I'm definitely voting no for.
So we found some agreement.
Absolutely, see?
It'll be interesting to see what that does to turnout actually in this election, and see how many people get out to vote against it or for
Absolutely.
it. It'll be interesting.
Joe?
Yeah,
We gave them a headache.
The state DEC is challenging FERC over its ruling to allow for the construction of a natural gas pipeline that will supply the CPV power plant being built in Wayward Yonder. Steve, would you have the county join them in litigation?
If it's something that can help them, yes. The county, I initiated a lawsuit after the Democratic corruption came down from Albany, influencing or the public affairs director for CPV. So so far the only court case that's won on our side has been the one we've done. But if they wanted us to enjoin and they're taking the lead, we'd absolutely help them if it helps the cause.
Yeah, absolutely. My stance on the CPV situation has been very clear from the start. Unlike Steve's, where there was some movement, initially very supportive of the project, then once the pipeline was denied, sort of jumped on the bandwagon against it. I don't think the FERC has any right to come down and tell our state that they can't protect the public health and safety and do the reviews that are possible. And I'll take it one step further and say that throughout this entire process, our own county health department was never asked to or did a study on the impacts of this project. We have a health department for a reason, with people who have credentials to do this type of thing, and I think it's a shame that we haven't taken advantage of that and put, again, the interests of the residents, particularly around the power plant and throughout the county, first. So I'm absolutely supportive of the county joining in that litigation against FERC to do everything we can to make sure that we consider all the facts, we consider the science behind what's going on out in Wayway Yonder.
I think the reality of this, though, is, look, 5 or 6 years ago, the legislature voted 20 in favor and 1 abstention, Orange County Legislature. They did a ceremonial resolution a few weeks ago that means nothing. The protests, I feel bad for the people out there. I know many of them. I talk to them. Every day that those protests go on, that plant gets built. The real decision here, it's not the county health department that should be taking the lead. It's our state and federal representatives. Our federal representatives have come out publicly saying they're in favor of it. So are they going to push FERC to the mat to look at this? And then you have our state representatives like James Skoupis, who took money from it. Now he's going to introduce a bill in a year or two that can review it. By then, the plant's built. So at the end of the day, the real regulatory agencies, the DEC, which has now done something after the corruption changed that whole plant, and it changed the whole process right now where we are. Once the chief of staff or the governor was arrested, and that trial is going to start in 2018, that's changed everything. That's why everybody put the brakes on it. But at the end of the day, if somebody wanted to really do something about it, besides the lawsuits that we filed, the only ones that have won so far have been successful, the state and federal government should help. And let me tell you, I haven't seen our state representatives on the side of the anti-CPV advocates. And I'm not trying to take a decision for them there, but those are the guys that can make the most difference.
Speaking of litigation, the conflict over Kiryas Joel expanding resulted in a lawsuit that pitted the county and 8 of its municipalities against one municipality, Kiryas Joel. If, as county executive, what would you do to foster some kind of channel of communication, sustained communication between Kiryas Joel and neighboring communities so that doesn't happen again, or lessens the chances that will happen again?
Who's first?
Go ahead.
Sure. I mean, the Kiryas Joel and the growth of that community and its impacts on the surrounding areas of the county is one of the toughest challenges we face in Orange County. And in fact, I think it's one of the toughest challenges that any community faces anywhere in our country from a constitutional perspective. And really, we've clearly been grappling for a very long time about how to make the situation better. And it is a shame that there's a lot of mistrust and hate between in lawsuits that are making this even worse than it needs to be. It's an indictment of the county leadership that the deal for the creation of the new town of Palm Tree had to be brokered between a non-elected citizens group and the leadership of KJ. I think the county needs to take a more active role in leading the county towards the future with new solutions. Like I'm super supportive of creation of the town of Palm Tree. As a resident of the town of Monroe, it is what we need to do to protect our political future, keep our schools strong, and do all the things that attracted me and my neighbors to the region in the first place. But that, the discussion that's been happening, the dialogue that's been happening needs to move up, needs to get into the county, into the realm of the county leadership. It needs to stay in the open. We need to invite all the other municipalities who didn't necessarily have a say in the creation of the town of Palm Tree to the table so that their concerns are heard, and we come together and figure out how we're going to move forward. We got a lot of issues associated with the growth of that community. The water and the sewer district are perfect examples, and we cannot afford for the discussion to be made, the discussion and the negotiations to be made in back rooms without county leadership involved. That's why we elect county leadership, and that's what we pay them to do.
And this is where I think my opponent is completely unqualified and unfit for this job, and really would be a risk. I grew up in Southern Orange County. I went to Monroe Woodbury. I've seen what happened. The town of Monroe has been on complete chaos with the block vote controlling all their elections. So first off, the negotiations between United Monroe, which has 2 of the candidates that are actually 2 elected officials on the town board, those were negotiated with the county. So it's not like we weren't there. I was in the room. So was legislative leadership, Democrat and Republican, both in my office and in the legislative chairman's office. So that happened with us. We were involved in every map, every study, every tax plan was all put together with Orange County resources under my leadership. So that has to be cleared up. And you can ask United Monroe, and you can ask Tony Cardone, their candidate for supervisor, who's supporting me, the truth of that. The second thing is, you can't just hug it out with Kiryas Joel. When I ran 4 years ago, my opponent was known to park her car over pipelines to try to stop construction. State police had to move the cars. The county taxpayers are going to have to pay the punishment for the workers not doing it. I'm not going to chain myself to a tree or join a protest. I'm going to do something that actually helps and gets things done. So I campaigned. I said I would join a lawsuit with the local municipalities, which we did. Promises made, promises kept. The result of that has got everybody to the table. There was so many lawsuits going on, and that's really what really brought everybody to the table to negotiate for the town of North Monroe. So what does it mean now? What can we do going forward? The question Chris says, what do you do for that going forward for those local municipalities? I go to every monthly meeting of the supervisors and mayors. Last night was another one. My opponent's never been to one. Most of the supervisors and mayors in the county have supported me. The reason why is I'm actively engaged with them. They need to know what's going on with the sewer and water related to this community. And what happens when this gets voted on next month, the town of North Monroe, it gives the remaining part of Monroe a chance to recalibrate, just like we did in Chester. So Woodbury and Blooming Grove are going to be faced with the same decision, recalibrate their zoning, and then we're going to start addressing the sewer issue, which is really one thing. It's about governance. Every one of those municipalities, Harriman, Monroe, Woodbury, they all need a seat at the table as we start expanding and talking about what the future of sewer water is.
Yeah, I think you misunderstood what I said. I'm not sitting here saying we need to hug it out with Kiryas Joel. We need we need adults to come to the table to speak to each other on the same level, and we're not talking down or treating any one community different than we would treat any of the other communities. And no, I'm not out there chaining myself to a tree or protesting either. That's not my style. So again, we need a way to move towards the future with a better solution to reduce the divisiveness, the mistrust between our communities related to KJ's growth.
And look, here's the problem. KJ is a big enough issue. When you announced in May, you lived in Monroe for 7 years, and you had no opinion on the village of Kiryas Joel. It doesn't take a person a day to live in Monroe to know what's going on with Kiryas Joel. So you had no opinion. And look, I reported it to the record. Chris hasn't ran a story on it, but you got on a Reform Party ballot because you met with the Hasidics to get your signatures. Well, I didn't get the signatures to get on there.
You won the last election by the margin of the KJ
They
block
testified in court in front of Mike Sussman. I think he was there, and they said that I was the best of two evils. They knew that I was going to sue them, but they knew that Roxanne had spent her 20-year career on it. So, you sit here, you got on the ballot because of the village of Kiryas Joel. What promises have you made to God, Pat? And you've met with them numerous times on this.
I haven't made a single promise, and no, I haven't met with them numerous times. It's just, that's not true.
Pat.
Look, I've been in this race for 5 months. The only reason you got on the stage at the public hearing was because you saw that I was sitting down, ready to make a statement. And yeah, I made a statement. And
you were clapping for the opposite statement when Sussman said the opposite. You were sitting there clapping like a seal. You were sitting there clapping at the opposite of what you said.
Michael Sussman and I disagree on this
particular
issue.
Then why'd you clap for him? You clapped for him.
Because I support people getting up and saying,
standing
for what they believe in.
So not the substance, you just like people talking.
No.
Okay. Cass?
I have a KJ question. David Hoovler has been very successful in prosecuting welfare fraud and its various social food stamps or whatever. And as we're talking about attitudes toward KJ, as you said, you don't have to live around here very long to hear one thing, and that is that those people are taking our lunch money and using it with welfare fraud.
Right.
Why have there not been any KJ arrests for welfare fraud?
Okay,
Does that assume that there is none?
Let's take two things. First of all, when you talk about fighting welfare fraud, I think we had 4 welfare fraud arrests before Dave Hoovler and I took office. Right. The way we're fighting that is really a 4-pronged team. It's the DA, it's the Sheriff's Office, it's the FBI, and it's my Social Service Office. The people that run my investigation office and Social Services office have had their hands handcuffed before I took office. Hands off. Now, we have made arrests all over the county, but you're referring to why not in Kiryas Joel. Here's the difference. Ken, where do you live? What town?
Where I live? I live in New Windsor.
You live in New Windsor. You need welfare benefits today. You need to come to me in a county. Same thing for wherever else lives in Orange County. If you live in the village of Kiryas Joel, you go direct to the state. The state of New York facilitates the welfare expenditures and the welfare qualifications for the village of Kiryas Joel. They call it cultural differences. So if you want to get real and you want to see real fighting and making sure that welfare is fought in village of Kiryas Joel, it needs to come down by the state. Or they give it back to the county and we'll investigate ourselves. I will tell you we've had some successes with the FBI because they're the ones that have the long arm with the federal jurisdictions. But that's the situation of where it is today.
So do you believe there is welfare fraud at this
I believe
level?
there's welfare fraud everywhere, and when you have one community getting special treatment on how to facilitate it, it definitely raises an eyebrow.
Yeah, look, I agree. We can agree with that. Yeah, I think we're going to agree on that one. But look, the question I have in relation to the district attorney's crackdown and the county's crackdown on welfare fraud, honestly, in a lot of ways, it breaks my heart to see, when these cases are brought up and you've got a couple $1,000s here and a couple $1,000s there, you put plaster these people's faces on the cover of the paper. That breaks my heart. And the question I ask, and I honestly don't know the answer, but I suspect it's not a good one, is what are we paying? What is the cost of doing all those investigations for the amount of money that we're recovering? How much are we spending on the department that's investigating these things, and what types of results are we getting? I think that's a case where we could be using those resources in more intelligent ways to fight real problems over time, like the opioid epidemic.
So I would just say one other thing: welfare usage and SNAP, the food stamps of today, has gone down. The economy's helped, but I also think that by enforcing welfare fraud, that you're sending a message. When I tell you that we've made 4 arrests the year before Dave and I took office, and now we're over to 160, and you're getting people to write us a check. Dear Orange County, here's a check for $50,000. I'm sorry I stole the taxpayer monies. That's a good thing. So even if it costs a little more to do the enforcement, at the end of the day, it sends a message that we're not going to take this. And every taxpayer I know that's working hard, every family, finds it offensive when people are abusing the welfare.
Talking about a lot of things here, but as a CEO, a question I would ask Steve, as currently the CEO and you wanting to be, what keeps you awake at night worrying about Orange County, and what are your plans to address it?
What keeps me awake at night is really, let me tell you, I sleep great at night. I have a great family. I have 4 gorgeous kids. Literally the only thing that keeps me up at night, and I bring this out all the time, I have a phone for the county for emergency management, is emergencies. And that's why I take emergency management so seriously. We had that horrible tragedy in Nevada 3 weeks ago on a Sunday. That Tuesday, we had a pre-scheduled active shooter drill at Woodbury Commons. That scares the hell out of me. Last year, we had the guy that had the bomb in New York City. The next morning, the sheriff and I are on the phone 5 o'clock in the morning sending bomb dogs to some of our businesses in Orange County because they're concerned. When it really, at the end of the day, being an incident, there's a lot of roles for the county executive, a budget director, the spokesman for tourism and welcoming businesses. But emergency management, where you have people's lives on the line, like we had the train derailment. We did a train derailment exercise last November. As Murphy's Law happened, we had a train derailment 1,000 feet away from where we did that practice. So we do a lot of practices and drills, but we hope we never have to do them. So that keeps me up at night. Emergency management, where I have my residents' lives on the line, gets me worried.
Okay.
Patrick?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, what keeps me awake at night, and obviously not being in the role of county executive yet, is just very broadly. You mentioned having kids. I've got 2 young boys as well, a 16-month-old and a 3-year-old, and honestly, I am very troubled by what's going on in our politics at all levels. We are not creating the future that we want our kids to grow up in. When my kids grow up, I want them to be successful, not because of the color of their skin, where they were born, how much money they have, or anything like that. I want them to be successful for the same reasons that me and my wife were successful. We worked hard, we had good ideas, and we're committed to service. Right now, what's going on in our country, and I think this is a relevant point, this isn't just me complaining about Trump and what he's trying to do, but there's a very real impact on this race of what's going on in Washington. When he threatens to cut Medicaid funding, the counties are left to foot the bill. When they remove the state and local income tax deduction, which they've proposed to do, that's going to make I think the number's like 30 or 40% of the residents of Orange County will be paying higher taxes, right? So what I haven't seen in this in Steve's administration or in the current budget is an acknowledgement, a simple acknowledgement of those risks, because times are good, right? And when times are good, it's when you're supposed to be preparing for the future. I feel like we're too complacent. I feel like we're not recognizing those risks. Those things should all be built into the budget so that legislators and the people know that if some of this stuff gets enacted, and the county gets hit as hard as it was hit during the financial crisis, we'll be ready to deal with it, and not just about tapping into the fund balance.
When you put a budget together, and that's the difference between Pat and I. And look, we get along, and I think he's a good guy. I think he thinks I'm a decent guy as well. But at the end of the day, a lot of his issues are based on Washington. That's why we have a congressman and we have a senator. And when I put a budget together, which is highly scrutinized by the state comptroller and from Moody's, our bond rating, I don't put it on what might happen or what's being debated in Washington. It has to be put together by reality. I can't say, hey, I'm putting money here just in case the you know what hits the fan on this item or Medicaid gets adjusted. I have to answer to Moody's and the comptrollers for every line in the budget. And if our guys in Washington are doing a good job or not fighting for us, then Pat, you should be running for that.
The CEO's job of any business, primary job, and you might agree with this, is risk management. To not acknowledge the risks that are out there on the frontier is poor leadership. That's not what we're here for. We're here not to take credit for where we were and where we are, but to acknowledge risks on the horizon and prepare ourselves to meet those. We need to be doing things now to make sure that down the road, we talk about cost savings and reducing the cost of government. That's why I'm very proud of my zero-based budgeting initiative, a new process to increase transparency so that maybe we're not saving money in the first couple of years, but down the road the conditions are set. So 4 years down the road, I'm not just taking credit for all these external factors. I'm taking credit for actions that I took that had results and are measurable and put us in a better position financially.
I think we can all agree that Moody's is probably the most independent third-party validator out there.
I agree.
And they said, due to my management practices, I'll send you the quote, Pat, we have turned the county around and they removed the negative outlook to us. So, I mean, you could talk about complaining about this or that, and the comptroller who's going to headline the Democratic fundraiser next Friday said that Orange County is no longer susceptible to fiscal stress and applauded our thing. So
it's like the rooster taking credit for the sunrise. So the economy's recovered.
It's cute, but it's not true, Pat. You know it. Sorry.
Ken?
This just brings up another issue.
Look, we're being cordial, so you got to be happy about that.
That's okay.
We're even dressed the same outfit
I
today.
noticed that, right? All the Chinese were wearing that same outfit yesterday, too, at the Politburo meeting. I just want to point that out.
We did. We attended that. That was our debate prep
Same thing.
yesterday for Pat and I.
If things were so bad 4 years ago, that was after, 3 terms of Eddie Diana. Should the people of Wallkill vote for him for supervisor?
Look, at the end of the day, you have to remember, guys, from 2008 to 2014 was the worst financial crisis, at least in our timeline. I don't know how old the rest of you guys are, but definitely definitely in our timeline. And it depleted a lot of the county's resources. And at the end of the day, it put a lot of tough things. And the other thing I have to say for Eddie Diana, because I think he's I've known the guy my whole life. I ran against the guy. I thought I could do a better job than him. I had a different vision than him. But the guy was very sick. When I got elected in November, a week later, the guy got a liver transplant. So when that was happening, he was running. I was running for election against Roxanne, and the guy was really very ill. You guys all know that. Every one of you in this room has seen what he looked through. So I think he is a very fiscally conservative guy. The guy is one of the tightest guys I know, and that's good for a taxpayer. I think he's passionate. I told him I think he's crazy. If I could retire at his age and enjoy life, I would. But the guy's got a lot of passion. He's got a lot of experience. And the fact that he's running unopposed in Wallkill, in a highly democratic town, shows you that the guy is a very formidable, well-liked person. So I think he's going to do a great job, and I'm going to work with him.
And the question was whether people should vote for him or not. Unfortunately, I think they don't have a choice, right? And I think that's a sad statement. I think we do have too many races across the county at the local level where they're not contested. That is not a healthy democracy. And when I looked at the situation in May, and Steve had said some not so nice things about Michael Sussman not wanting to run, I said, you know what? It's not acceptable that the residents of the county don't have a choice for county executive in November. And I want to go back to the economic crisis because the counties in particular were hit harder than most. And in terms of government, counties were hit really hard by the fallout of the economic crisis. And over the past decade or so, things have been improving. And Obama did a lot to turn our economy around without letting it go completely to waste. But all across the country, county bond ratings were improving. Like those guys are independent. They look at they focus not on management or personalities. They look at the numbers. That's how they do their ratings. They have models that do that. I've worked very closely to that space. So again, we can't be sitting here taking credit as a county executive for broader trends in the overall national economic recovery.
I think it was Muhammad Ali said it's not bragging if you can back it up. And if I had Moody's say that the new management style, the management is the county executive, just so everybody knows. So that's a third-party validator. They said a lot of not-so-nice things about the county in the past, too. So for them to say something about our management style and reversing trends and bringing in economic development, we brought the Moody's team up in Orange County to meet with prospective businesses that were looking to locate, as well as ones that were existing and expanding here. So that's I stand on my record, and I think we can show for it.
How did your plans for Valley View factor into Moody's bond rating decision?
It
I know that was a big part.
Look, Moody's highlighted it in there. They mentioned it in the first year I came in there, that the continued drain on the county government from the nursing home is affecting the downgrade. So making a decision, also having the union contracts unsettled. When I came into office, every union contract was unsettled, every single one of them. So there was a list of things to do in our to-do list, and Valley View is another one. It's stabilized, and I'm happy that the union, as bad as it was when we had to make a decision,
You wanted to close it.
Huh?
You wanted.
I didn't want to close it. No,
sell
difference, guys. Sell it.
Yep, you wanted to sell
So
it.
the options were sell, close, or keep. At the time when I took office, it was costing a lot of money to the taxpayers. There was no change in sight. It had been debated for almost 10 years with Eddie Diana. And the legislature decided to take your recommendation, Barry. It's either you or Ken wrote the editorial, Ulster County paves the way to privatizing their nursing home. We copied your recommendation. You guys didn't give us credit for it. But it ended up going a different direction, and it's working out today. And the silver lining at that, as bad and hostile, and Chris McKenna can validate that because he sat in on all the hearings, fighting back and forth, the union that represents them, including the president who works at Valley View, endorsed me. We've come full circle. It's not easy. When you make tough decisions, it's not easy. But at the end of the day, you stick with them and you move forward, and that's why I'm happy that we have a great outcome. It turned out so well that I called the Rockland County nursing home that was closed, which is the worst thing you want to do, and took some of their employees. I actually reached out to the CSEA, Billy Ricardo, who's one of their leaders, and said, all those people are getting laid off there, tell them to come up here, because we had the early retirement incentive in ours that we needed some people.
What did you learn from that? Because obviously you had switched gears.
We
and
just
obviously
changed.
now it works.
You got to be able, a good leader always has to be prepared to make changes. When you stop being able to change, you fail as being a leader. So look, we tried different things. Some people said, keep it as is, don't worry about it, let's close the airport, or let's close something else. There was all sorts of recommendations. The whole legislature was engaged in the fiscal crisis. Everybody was throwing out different ideas. And the majority of the legislature said, let's follow the Ulster County rule, which we did. It didn't work, and we went a different direction. And we will continue to need to monitor Valley View because we have to fight for those federal funds, the IGT installments. But at the end of the day, Valley View is a brighter place today than it was 4 years ago. And there's stability. There's no angst from the residents that it's going to be closed. It is it's definitely sounder waters now than it was back then.
Patrick?
Yeah, I mean, this is like the arsonist who sets fire to a building and then comes in and saves the family and takes credit for that. We have to acknowledge the facts of the situation that, first of all, that you campaigned heavily in 2013 on selling Valley View, and then got into office and moved forward very aggressively on those plans to sell it, citing financial numbers that were going down the tubes and threatening county employees who didn't get on board with your plan, threatening to lay them off if they didn't get on board. And the fact of the matter, circumventing processes in the legislature to get the vote through. The fact of the matter is, it was saved by Democrats in the legislature and a Republican who defect from party lines to I think do the right thing. And we can't ignore that. This is Valley View's been such an important part of the county historically. Our senior citizens make their lives making our community a better place, and they deserve the highest amount of care possible. And the fact that it didn't get privatized, and now it's turned around again. It's
Why didn't the union support you, Pat? You and I both interviewed together for him.
I think it's a massive conflict of interest that the guy negotiating contracts with the union can even be in the consideration for
but that's the
an
way
endorsement of the union.
That's the way the county government works. You got to go up to Albany or Washington
conflicts
to make
of interest
these changes.
in backroom deals.
I think you would have. Then why did you
Caldo?
interview for the job? You would have had the same spot, Pat. You interviewed for the same job that you're
I'm
criticizing.
interviewing
And then when you would
for
have
the
rejected,
county executive.
you would
job.
have rejected the endorsement in January after you took office.
I'm not rejecting any
Then
endorsement.
why did the
It's
CSEA
the way
who
the game is
represents
played.
them? Okay, well, but it just I'm just saying
Because
your
to,
argument
because
doesn't hold
to
water.
Steve, to them it's a win-win situation. If I get into office in January, they know without a doubt that our values are in alignment. I'm not going to try to pull anything like that on them.
But they endorsed me, Pat.
If you win, you can't retaliate, and they have a contract with you. It's a very clear conflict of interest.
Pat, look, after all the changes that went happened in Valley View, they ended up supporting me. And Barry, you brought up an important thing at the beginning about closing it.
And this is
and it could have closed if the county didn't reshuffle and straighten out its financial shape. The legislature there was options out there. Look what happened in Rockland County. It didn't sell, they closed it. It didn't sell, we kept it, and it's running better today. So Pat, you can come and pull bingo numbers there at the family day. They're not backing you.
I enjoyed calling bingo. I think the senior citizens loved my bingo calling skills. But the fact is, the administrator that was appointed was not appointed by you. He's the guy who turned it around.
But he could have.
I don't think in this case the CSEA leadership speaks for the voices of their employees.
All right, we're going to move on.
All right. Regarding the county sewer district, Steve, you support the idea of diverting wastewater from Chester and South Blooming Grove to Goshen.
Look, I support but the way you structure the question in the paper is different. Look, it's got to be agreeable by Goshen and Chester. So do I think it's a concept they should do, and I think it's a good one? Yes, but I wouldn't shove it down their throat.
Okay, let me finish the question. You explain, please, how that would benefit the residents of Blooming Grove and Chester who would be paying for it. And Patrick, since you don't seem supportive of that idea, what alternative would you pursue as county executive when the time comes to increase sewage treatment capacity?
So there's two groups of sewer taxpayers in, like, let's say Chester. One of them that is using sewer today, and one of them that's in a district that's paying to have sewer in the future. So you have to have future capacity available for them. Orange County is getting up to where they're going to be out of capacity, so you're required by the DEC to look at alternatives. So the village of Goshen years ago built a sewer plant that has excessive capacity, and it raised their rates on their users there. So the village of Goshen taxpayers pay a lot of money for their sewer rates. So if they have the extra capacity, and this is in my thinking, these are what engineers come up with these ideas and make recommendations, and we decide if they work or not. So their idea was to free up the space in Harriman, which is already out of capacity, and divert Chester's sewer along 17M to Goshen. So now you have more people paying into Goshen, and the Chester payers are paying into that. So at the end of the day, it's got to have a couple things. Number one, it's got the cooperation of Chester. It's got to have the cooperation of Goshen. Also has to have it has to be fiscally right. The town of Chester and the Blooming Grove people that are sending their sewer down to Harriman now, and that would be part of that diverted people, that process would not, you can't sack them with a higher bill. It's got to be economically viable for them to do it.
Well,
So
how would it help them at all? Why would they want to do that?
Well, look, the guys that are paying for it now are just happy. Like, look, I live in the sewer district now. I just want to make sure my sewer works, okay? The people that want to hook up and the businesses that want to hook up want to have that capacity. If that capacity is not there, it stops them from building a house or building a business. So they want that sewer to be available. So it's a solution. There's only two solutions right out there. It's to expand.
You're saying new users.
New users,
Potential
but they're paying.
developers.
When you pay a sewer bill, they're paying two bills. One you pay to actually use the sewer, and one you pay to be in a district. So those ones that are paying a district we are obligated. The government is obligated to give them sewer when they say, "Hey, I got to prove my house. I want to build it," and the county government or the sewer district in this case, which is run by they also have the Munda Group involved in there. They are obligated to provide sewer to those payers.
Okay.
But it's got to be economically
there's
viable.
an unmet demand for sewer service in Chester and Blooming Grove.
Am I saying what?
There's an unmet demand. There's demand.
Well, look, it's working now. The good thing is that some towns have more capacity available than others, so they're able to share it. But that's the gray area about the about the governance, and that's always been the problem. So when I was in Chester as supervisor, they would take some of our excess capacity against our wishes and dole it out to somebody else. And that's why this governance issue that I've supported, now that I'm county executive, I'm part of that team of supervisors, I still support their way of thinking, that local way of government, and supporting them. That's why they're behind me as well.
Yeah, so with the sewer district, it's clear, first of all, that we need to align the usage with the governance. Right now, when these projects are proposed, the legislature still approves the budget, but I think it's something like 16 out of the 21 legislators don't have any constituents in their district who are using the sewer district capacity. And yes, we need a solution, and I understand that there was a study done to divert the sewage over to Chester, and I think that could be a potential solution. What I call into question in the case of this are really two things. One is, we're not mentioning sort of the big elephant in the room is where is this usage coming from? Where is this demand? And there's one community in particular in the middle of the area that is growing more rapidly than the others. The other part is, and I raise this, is engineers can come in and do studies. They can come in and do studies and propose solutions, and I think that's absolutely fine. I call into question, and I think we debated this over press releases or something like that, and they call into question the campaign donations that came from the same firm that conducted this study and has a vested interest in the $27 million diversion project. To me, I'm not calling into the question the feasibility of the study, the viability of the study, but again, this is another case of conflict of interest where this engineering firm has a vested interest in what's going on in the county. You, as the county executive, have very real influence over what kind of decisions are made. So even taking those campaign donations, I think, calls into question what the motives are.
See, at the end of the day, we're talking about an engineering study. We can get into campaign contributions and the fact that nobody supports you, and that's why they're not contributing to you. Your other friends, your other political friends that you pal around with, are getting tons of donations from other people.
I don't have many political friends.
You have Scoofus and other guys. They're making money. You should ask them why their friends don't support you. But here's the deal. Let's talk about the sewer. The sewer study is done by professional engineers. They're putting their license on the line when they file these things. They have to be realistic. They have to be realistic plans. So we had a lot of people that applied for that job, and when a county selected, I wasn't even on the selection committee, but here's the deal. They need to have experience doing sewer plants. Some of the ones that didn't have experience didn't get picked. So I stand with the decisions that were made by my public works, and at the end of the day, the sewer decision and how to grow in Orange County will be the issue going forward in the future, 2018-19, especially in southern Orange County as the growth demands it.
Legoland, it's getting approval, or it has received the latest approval. The big question that seems to be out there is traffic. And it's a $40 million proposal to build a flyover and relocate the exit. Should Legoland pay that whole freight, all of that?
Legoland's paying a big part of it now. And look, at the end of the day, the traffic is a big issue. And it's a big issue right now. We're not even the casino open. The casino's going to be opening in the beginning of next year. And at the end of the day, that traffic is going to come in there. And we're doing the interchange, or the state's doing the interchange now, which is going to help make it a high-speed lane. We had the New York State DOT from Region 8 director was here last night meeting with us and talking about how it's going to be done. But Legoland should pay for it. But at the end of the day, we have to remember, we're in New York. We have the biggest outward migration of people and companies in the country. So the fact that we have a company that wants to come here, we need to accommodate that. We need to work with them. We need to work with the casino traffic that's going to come in here. We need to alleviate the traffic that you have right now on Sunday afternoon. So just because you have a traffic problem on Sunday afternoon, we have to say no to any other growth, whether it's Legoland or a store or a company.
No, I'm not saying no. I'm just saying who should pay.
I think the state and federal government has been lacking. I remember doing a press conference with Steve Israel about 3 years ago when the casinos were announced. And Chuck Schumer, the senator, was here. And he said, we need to have 3 lanes from here all the way up to Monticello. Right. And what did Steve Israel do? He pulled out a press release. He goes, Senator, here's a press release from you from 8 years ago where you said the same thing. So the talk about making it a federal highway and all that stuff, that needs to be fast-tracked. I was up to Niagara Falls last summer for a conference, or a year ago, And they've already built 3 lanes all the way up there, but there's nothing up there. It's one of those concepts where you build it, they will come. They should be, the federal and state government should be taking the lead on doing the general infrastructure on 17, and the developers that come in, like Legoland, which is going to be paying for a major part, they're paying for major infrastructure in that project. And at the end of the day, when they're built, and if it happens here, they will be bringing in the sales tax revenue and the hotel tax revenue and the other things.
And so the question was directly related to traffic. That is clearly one big concern, especially recently with them balking at funding the necessary upgrades. That's just one piece of the equation, and many of these were mentioned here. If we're going to force state and federal to come down and help us with funding the traffic updates, we have one lever that we have control of in the county government in terms of this negotiation with Legoland. That's the IDA and the incentive. So I don't understand why we provided or approved the 20-year tax break without the rest of the details of the deal being worked out. If we maintain any piece of leverage, it should be that incentive. After everything is in place, say, okay, now let's negotiate how much of a tax break we're going to be giving you. The other part of the issue with Legoland is that there's a referendum out there. I think that a deal of this magnitude, which is going to impact the county fairly broadly, I think it's beyond the expertise and really the scope of what we should be asking our town boards and local officials to assess. These deals are huge, and I'm not up here just saying no, 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 but what I'm saying is, I don't think you've remained an honest broker in this discussion. I think it's valuable for companies who come in to be sitting across the table from a county executive with actual business experience, so that, like myself, so that we can make this the best deal possible, not just for the company, but also for the residents of Orange County. And I don't think that's been done, and I think that's why we need to go to a referendum to make sure that that's what the public truly believes. And then the other part about this, you mentioned the jobs of the casino. They're advertising on the radio relentlessly to fill these 600 dealer jobs, and it sounds like they're having some serious issues. You mentioned the outflux of people leaving the county. We have a fairly low unemployment rate, but what we're failing to recognize is that there's a huge proportion of people out there that are earning wages that they can't support themselves on, that they can't support a family on. So I don't understand how bringing in part-time seasonal jobs is going to remedy that. I grew up near Great Escape up in Lake George, New York, and what they do for their employment is, due to the seasonality, our high school students in New York are only out of school really from July and August, 2 months out of the April to October season. So what do? And this is by no means an anti-immigration stance. They go overseas and they hire students on visas to come in and do the jobs for a couple months at a time and then leave. So these economic spillover benefits, the reduction of taxes that the residents of Goshen have been promised, the jobs that have been promised, we have to really question whether or not those are going to come to fruition. I think you've lost your independence in this one again. You bought into the project right away, and we need an executive who's an honest broker, asking the right questions, negotiating with the company to get the best deal possible for Orange County. And maybe Goshen's not the place for it. Maybe we put it up closer to Newburgh, where it can take advantage of the Stewart Airport traffic and the infrastructure that we have with roads there. I just have a lot of concerns with the Legoland deal.
So, Pat, you're completely clueless on this issue. I mean, first of all, a month ago you spoke at a public forum and you said the IDA is appointed by the county executive. It's not true. You don't even know.
I didn't say
you're
that
running.
publicly.
We have you on tape on it. So we can play for you later if you want to, as well as your meetings with the Hasidics, that we can show it to you later on if you want to talk about it. Which you said never happened.
That's a bullface.
That never happened as well. Okay, well, we'll be posting them later for you. So here's the other thing. First of all, the county executive doesn't appoint the IDA. You do have influence, and you guys know I fought with them in the past. I fought with them in CNS. I fought with them when they wanted to give a Cadillac dealership a tax break 2 years into my term as county executive. But we also have to offer jobs across the board, the spectrum. We have high-paying jobs here that are expanding, medical-related jobs, high-tech jobs like Pratt & Whitney. We negotiate and sit across from them. But New York is a very difficult place to come to. It's very easy to go anywhere else, especially in the South, but other states are just as competitive. So we need to be competitive and we need to be flexible. Do I call them out when they give out excessive breaks? Yes. But at the end of the day, here's the other thing we need to do. We need to train our workforce. The graduates of high school today are said to have 5 different career paths in their time. Since I've been county executive, we've opened 2 new educational facilities, one in Newburgh, one in New Windsor, where finally, after promises were made in Port Jervis, I kick-started that. I brought in Christine Young from OC, and we're going to be offering men and women in Port Jervis ability to get their associate's degree. Getting our workforce educated for the jobs that are available out there is going to be key. So at the end of the day, when you talk about traffic on Legoland, and you know, when I have you on the radio, Pat, I'm experienced at this. You are too, at least at some point. You said on the radio that you were upset with Legoland a month ago before Mike Sussman started coaching you because you're worried that when they have their 4 days a year fireworks, it's going to upset the horses. You just started bringing up traffic after Mike started coaching you. Traffic is a major issue. The state is responsible for 17, folks. I shouldn't have the county pay for it. The federal government's supposed to take over 17. It's been talked about forever. So that they should take care of their own infrastructure. Just how I fixed the Forge Hill Bridge with my county government that was closed, or Scotchtown Avenue. That's what I'm responsible for. So calling our state representatives to come in and take responsibility for what they own is their obligation. And it's not out of the privity of the county exec to request that.
I mean, what you're playing back here are the concerns I have in Legoland. You're just insulting all the people in the county who, first of all, a lot of people don't understand the magnitude of the tax incentive that we've given them. And I'm replaying the things I've heard of concerned citizens in the county that feel like they haven't been listened to in your administration. There's a way to make this work, and we have to come to the table to figure it out. Again, I'm not just saying no, but we need to come together and negotiate a better deal.
I'll just say one last thing on Legoland. When they first came here, I brought them with the Port Authority and other economic development leaders in the county. We met. The first meeting we had with Legoland was at Stewart International Airport. We drove across the county, down from Montgomery all the way through Newburgh, through New Windsor, through Woodbury. We had lunch at Woodbury Commons and introduced them to the Simon properties to talk about how many people are coming here. Then brought them up 17 all the way into Middletown. They are a private company. We don't force them to do where they want to do. They can buy property where they want to. They decided to pick Goshen. They met with the Goshen officials, and they started the process, and the Goshen board has so far been very favorable to the project. And that's what a home rule state's about. We show them Orange County as county executive. These are the places we think work, but you decide where you want to go.
I still want to know, of the $40 million that's needed, should Legoland provide it or should the state
I think it should be a combination of both.
So you think the state should give more money to Legoland?
I don't think should give more, but they should pay their fair share too, because they don't need to be here, Ken.
I understand that, but I'm just saying we've already given them $7 million. There's already been the tax.
But you're talking about a $40 million flyover. That's up to them to negotiate with them.
Okay,
now,
who should pay for the $40 million? I'm still looking.
I would like Legoland to pay as much as possible. That.
How much? Well,
so look, if they get paid a whole thing, that'd be great. But that's something they're going to have to negotiate on.
That's a should they.
I think they should.
They should pay the 40.
Absolutely.
I agree 100%.
Good.
Every dollar.
Given the history of, I'm not originally from the area, but I watched it take exceedingly long time to construct anything in New York, especially in Orange County.
I wouldn't say especially Orange County. It's 3 to 5 years, any average New York statewide, to get something built because of our very large amount of regulations. The secret process is like the Miranda rights that can and will be used against you if you have a project. So Orange County doesn't take that long unless you're talking county government. And that's only because we have to follow procurement.
The 122 project took exceedingly
But
long.
that's a state job.
Right.
I can't answer for what the governor or the legislature does.
Right, but it takes long in the
Okay,
case.
Yeah.
I guess my point is, Legoland, if it goes forward, says 2020, they want to open.
Mm-hmm.
Do we actually think a flyover can be built by 2020?
Absolutely. It has to be. It can make it a condition of their approval. That's the great beauty of home rule state. You want to come to my town, you want to come to my village or city, we love you, come. Here's what you need to do. You need to protect the residents by putting a buffer between Arcadia Hills. You need to build this flyover. We're not going to give you the C of O. You can hold those things hostage.
Okay.
So that's the experience I have as a town supervisor. I've done that before. I've seen that before, but I don't need to babysit Goshen. They have their own responsibilities and people that are elected there by the residents.
Okay.
And I'm not going to I'm just responding really quick. I'm not going to disagree that the regulation causes delays, but I really do believe, and this is based on my experience working in the financial industry, that in some cases regulation can be heavy-handed, but if we cannot lose sight of the reason and the intent for why the regulation is there. We talk a lot about the secret process. This process is in place to protect the environment and protect the public health and safety. If we aren't paying taxes to New York State to protect us against extractive business development and uncontrollable growth, then New York State is not going to be as great as it is. So we deserve that type of protection, because when companies are given the opportunity to, they'll take advantage. And we need reasonable regulation in place to make sure that they're not taking advantage. That said, we work very closely with state and federal, if possible, to expedite the process to make it as efficient as possible so that it's not costing the taxpayers too much money. Okay, and that's part of the problem right now.
Okay. You guys talked about campaign contributions a little before. The county isn't enforcing the pay-to-pay contribution limit on contractors that are organized as limited liability companies. Do you think that they should? And if so, would you ask the legislature to insert those 3 words in the pay-to-play laws so that they're treated like other businesses?
Yeah, I mean, my answer to this is simple. And this is what I'm going to pursue as county executive in terms of campaign finance reform. The bottom line is, if you're going to do business with the county government, the county executive in particular will not be allowed to take campaign donations from businesses with interests in government contract, business interests in government contracts. It's that simple. It's not an ethically safe place to be. It compromises the integrity of the office and of the individual sitting in. And it's just a way to protect the county executive from allegations of conflict of interest and making decisions that aren't in the best interests of the people. I don't care if there's loopholes in place that allow up to a certain amount of money from LLCs. That's very easy to get around. I don't care that there's loopholes. It's not right. We can't allow it.
So you're saying there should be $0?
$0. Individuals can give up to a certain amount. The other thing I'd like to see change, I know it's a state level thing, but the individual contribution limit of $10,900 is absolutely ridiculous. It's crazy that individuals can give more to a county level race than they can give to someone running for Congress. Our state campaign finance laws are a mess. We need to do what we can here in the county to address the pay-to-play schemes that have been going on for decades. It's one of the results of a single party, when you have a single party that's running the county for so long, and it's one of my priorities. Just look up at what Ulster did. They did something very similar and cleaned out the issue of money in politics. We need to, that's one of the biggest complaints I hear from people out there campaigning, is that there's too much money in politics. There's too much influence of special interests on the decisions that our politicians are making. And we can make a difference on that at the county level.
I think Orange County has one of the strictest pay-to-play laws in the region. If they make it stronger, or if the state makes it stronger, the state should be taking a lead on any contributions. But I've lived within those rules, and I'll continue to. Look, I'm not trying to beat up Pat, but he hired one of the biggest political consultants out of New York City, a professional fundraiser. He can't raise a dime. And you talk about Ulster County having stricter laws than me. Mike Hine raises more money than I do from some of the same contributors as me. There's not a peep about it. So at the end of the day, it's people. Look, you always have to have pay-to-play, and there needs to be enforcement. And you see when people get out of line, they get indicted by the FBI or the Attorney General. You don't see that here with me in Orange County and what we're doing. People believe in what we're working on, whether they work for the county or not. You have elected officials from even the Democratic Party coming to my side because they believe in the job we're doing. And that's what it's about. If money was pouring into Pat's campaign, he wouldn't be complaining about it right now, because they're pouring into all the guys that endorsed him. A few people that endorsed him got the same checks from different people. So at the end of the day, it's people that believe in us. I think we have a system that we're working with in county government. And if the state legislature or my county legislature wants to make it easier or stronger, we're obviously going to work together with them on it.
Well, what about the specific question of applying the pay-to-play limit to LLCs? Would you?
Oh, to LLCs? Look, at the end of the day, it's been talked about in Albany. I think it should be led by Albany. I have no problem either way on it, as long as it's I just want one thing. I want a fair playing ground. So if I'm running against somebody, they shouldn't be exempt from those type of restrictions. So if you're running for county executive, you should be in the same boat as me. Just like I said before to Pat, if he got the CSA endorsement or I got it, you still got to work with them in January, one of the two of us. So the same thing with the company. So if an elected official, that's what's not in our law today. If the guy running for office is self-financed and has $500,000 or gets tons of money from LLCs, but he's not part of that law because the existing guy's the only one that's part of that, I don't think that's fair. So I think if it's an even playing ground, I'm very happy to put that together.
I did hire a campaign fundraiser, and that's a very common thing to do, particularly if you're entering a political race with only 5 months left. And I'm very proud of what we've been able to do with people investing not in future interests of the county government, but investing as me because they've worked with me, they know me as a person, and they believe in what I'm bringing to the table. It is beyond the pale that we cannot recognize just plainly that the pay-to-play culture in our county government means that people's voices aren't being heard. We're listening, even if it's the perception of it, we're listening to wealthy corporate interests, people that have business interests with the county government, instead of the very people that elected you to office. If I get elected and win this thing without any donations from any of your friends who barely want to talk to me, which is understandable, it'll be a clear and resounding statement from the voters that they reject the influence of money in our politics, even at the county level. So am I fully confident that if I implement campaign finance reform as a county executive and shoot myself in the foot for my re-election, that's fine. That's what service is about. It's not about my campaign account. It's not about hooking up my buddies. It's about serving the people. And yeah, okay, maybe I might be shooting myself in the foot, but that's a fair playing ground. Pay to play is not fair.
At the end of the day, you're not in the political field. You call yourself a political outsider. You've done 3 political things. You got on the ballot with Kiryas Joel support. You've hired a political insider that can't even raise you money. And now you're proposing to put a opium center or clinic or treatment facility in Camp LaGuardia. These are all, Pat, you look like a well-intended guy, but these are all ill-conceived plans. And they're bad mistakes, in my opinion.
That's not what my supporters are saying.
Well,
that's not what people around the county, regardless of their party. You're sitting here saying that I'm connected to all these insiders.
Who's donating money
grew
from
up
Orange
in the
County
system,
to you?
Steve. You grew up in the system.
Your neighbors aren't donating to you. You're not even getting a handful of $25 checks. People don't believe in you, Pat, because you're a spokesman for Mike Sussman. Your issues are CBV and Legoland. And you're
taking care of the interests of the Orange County residents in those issues.
Meanwhile, your federal partners, your buddies that have endorsed you, have let these situations come to where they are.
Okay, gentlemen, we're going to now go to closing statements. And Steve, you have the floor here for your 2-minute closing statement.
It's been an honor to be county executive for almost 4 years. We've reversed a lot of the bad trends in Orange County. I'm proud of what we've done with the budget to make it stable and realistic. It's helped every household in the county. We've reduced the tax rate twice. How many elected officials run and say they're going to hold the line on spending and hold the line on taxes and bring in companies? When I run for re-election, which we're now less than 2 weeks away, I am having third-party validators. These aren't just me talking about how great I am or Pat, my opponent, talking about how great he is. These are people applauding me for my job. The CEO of Norwegian Airlines says that I was a major part of bringing them to Stewart Airport. That's a big deal. Steris Pharmaceutical, which did a major expansion, hiring 40 high-tech, good-paying jobs in Chester. My fire chief works there. My neighbors work at those facilities. They are giving me third-party validation that they thank me for being part of the process for bringing them here. That's making a difference to every household in Orange County. Every mom and dad that's worried about putting food on their table, that's being able to afford to live here and not being chased out of New York State. At the same time, it's allowed me to balance my budget. When I came into office, the county tax base shrunk by 25%. Everybody's house value, business value had shrunk by 25%. It's been creeping up more and more, and we're doing our part to make it even ahead of the national trends. So I think I've earned the voters' re-election. I'm going to continue to work for it up until 9/01 on Election Day, but I've made them safer as well. 2 perfect scores for the first time in Orange County's history. 2 perfect scores in emergency management from FEMA. I lead from the front. I make decisions that I think are for the best interest of the people of Orange County, and when I make my decisions, I think about my kids, because I grew up here. I went to Munter Woodbury. I saw my classmates being forced to leave here because there were no jobs available. And I think we have a diverse portfolio of jobs, medical, high-tech, whatever it is, there's a a seat for every backside. It's a philosophy out there. And my job is to make sure that my residents have as many options as possible, and I'm going to continue to do that if I'm reelected.
Yeah, I want to thank the editorial board for having us in today. The viewers who hopefully hung with us for the whole time, and Steve, looking forward to seeing you later in a similar setting.
Absolutely.
And thanks for agreeing to do this. I think it was a great discussion because I think it exposed some pretty significant differences between how I'm looking at things for the future of Orange County and how Steve is looking at things. And it also added some context to the issues that I'm running on, the issues of sustainable economic progress, right? Cleaning up the government, removing the pay-to-play culture that exists in Orange County government, protecting the environment, making sure we're not doing things that sacrifices the quality of the air we're breathing or the quality of the water we're drinking, and fighting the opioid epidemic. I think that was the starkest contrast we saw here is the difference between how I spoke about addressing the #1 concern of our times here in Orange County, how I address it, and how Steve has addressed it. Yeah, I think we need inpatient treatment facilities, and I propose that maybe Camp LaGuardia could be used for that. I'm not doubling down 100% sold on that idea. We'll work with the local leaders to figure out if that's the right thing to do. But the fact of the matter remains is that we need better inpatient treatment for folks that are struggling to recover and rehabilitate from this thing that's tearing our families apart. It is, I think, very clear that the experiences I bring to the table from West Point, from my time leading soldiers in Iraq, in the business world working on Wall Street, and with my Wharton MBA, that I am in a position to make this happen. All right, Orange County is a great place, and we shouldn't be selling ourselves short, or worse, becoming complacent. Steve, you're in the military, you realize this. Complacency is the #1 enemy when you're downrange. Once you get complacent, things start to fall apart, and you lose sight of where you're going, and that's where people get hurt. I think voters will agree that my vision, as someone who didn't grow up in the broken political system, is fresher, more forward-looking, and a better fit for what we want Orange County to look like in 2020. And thank you all for having me.
All right, I want to thank our candidates running for Orange County Executive, Republican incumbent Steve Neuhaus and Democratic challenger Patrick Davis. I do want to remind folks who will be watching maybe later on today being Wednesday, October 25th, that the Orange County Citizens Foundation will be holding an executive candidates debate. That is tonight, Wednesday, October 25th at 7 p.m. at the Twin Towers Middle School in Middletown. So we invite people to go to that. I also want to remind folks that they can watch this Times Held Record political debate anytime at recordonline.com. Thank you very much.